Hey, folks, welcome to Free Press Sports with Carlos and Shawn. Carlos, I think this is the second week in a row we've recorded, so we're doing okay. We're getting back into a rhythm. The summer's fading away. Is that how it's going?
Summer's just started for me. I'm going on vacation. I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, I'm actually on vacation right now, but because I love you so much and admire and respect Robin so much, our fabulous producer, Mr. Robin Shan. I admire and respect you, of course, too, but I love you. You know, I'll get there with Robin. I just haven't known him that long. You can't be a puppy. I mean, you got to be more like a cat. Make somebody earn it at least a little bit. Isn't that what Robert De Niro said?
Yeah, cats don't sell out like dogs. They make you rent for a
Right. So anyway, I'm taking a break after this podcast. You're going to go on vacation. Football's about to start. The Lions camp is about to start, and we're going to spend probably the bulk of this show getting into the Lions in camp. And I mean, my goodness, I can't believe it's already here. But we do need to finish up a little bit of basketball because NBA Summer League just ended, and I was out there in Vegas in the heat. And you said you wanted to talk about it. So whatever you want to talk about, I want to talk about it because that's the kind of podcast this is. It's a friendly podcast.
What I want to know, my biggest question about your time in fabulous Las Vegas is, I'm sure you went to that. I think you mentioned it 3 times, so you probably got some kind of kickback or sponsorship from Catch, the fancy schmancy restaurant in the Aria Hotel, where Cantonese lobster goes for $119. How did you sneak that onto the expense report? How'd you sneak that?
That's not my kind of place. It's not. I got, no, man, I eat off look, I'm not making a judgment by folks that stay in those huge casinos and go to those name brand restaurants, usually by celebrity chefs. I don't know that Catch is necessarily, although I think it's one of those kind of places that maybe it's also in LA or Dallas or something. I think there's one in Dallas. That's just not my scene. It's not, what I like to do when I like to go to Vegas and where I like to eat. I can tell you plenty about that, but I don't want to bore the listeners. I did go to Las Vegas. Actually has a really weirdly interesting Chinatown, and that's a couple of miles long of just strip mall after strip mall after strip mall, all with the alphabets and the writing of whether it's Chinese, Japanese, but it's a mix of Vietnamese, Thai, Chinese, and Japanese. And there's a tremendous Thai population in Las Vegas for various reasons. So I hung out. I went to a little Vietnamese coffee place, French coffee place, just an unassuming little place. I went to a Japanese place to get some ramen. Yeah, just regular. The Catch, that's for I don't know if you went to the website, right, Carlos, because you wouldn't have seen the price for the Cantonese lobster. Mm-hmm. I think they bill themselves as some kind of celebrity gathering, right, where the place to come see celebrities. Look, Vince Ellis, God love him, God bless him, former longtime free press writer, covered at Pistons, who works for the Platinum Equity and Tom Gores now, roped me into a really expensive dinner last year, the year before, branded by Jose Andres. And Vince is like, it's my birthday. Omari and I join him, and look, I'm not complaining. We were on a per diem when we're on travel, but you go to a place like that and you're going to outspend your per diem by a couple $100. And Omari and like, okay, we'll do this for you, Vince, but that's it. I'm not doing that. The food is good, but I can find great food in all sorts of places. Those places they're not really my scene.
Mm. But they serve omelets, and so you wrote a whole column on
I went to a place called Blueberry Hill. I filed one of those nights. It was late. I was done working at midnight there, so 3 a.m. back here, and I went to a place called Blueberry Hill. My kind of place, 24-hour diner.
Great name.
Off the strip, nothing but locals in there, and I had some pancakes. It was great. It was great. So that's what's good for me.
All right. Well, the listener is already bored, so we need to move this along and give us all the intel. You got an exclusive with Tom Gores, the Pistons.
A very brief one.
Hey, exclusive, man. Come on.
A very brief one. Yeah, he was at the game. I'm trying to remember what game it was. Maybe the third game of the summer league. And the reason, the night before, as you referenced, he'd taken the team and the coaching staff, maybe some of the front office staff, whoever was out in Vegas, basically. I think the whole team was there except for Bojan Bogdanovic, who's still over in Europe. And so he took him to this place, Catch, and they had a team dinner, and they talked about the goals. He was basically trying to give him a pep talk, saying, "Look, we're going to spend whatever it takes. We're going to put you in the best position, and now it's up to you. Take advantage of it." We got a young core, and then Troy Weaver spoke, and Monty Williams spoke, and then Kate Cunningham spoke. I think Isaiah Stewart did too. So that sort of set the scene or set the table. So then Gores stayed over the next day because, of course, he lives in Los Angeles. Vegas is close. He stayed over the next day and sat courtside. So after the game, he and I had a few minutes together in the tunnel. The interesting thing about people with that kind of money, or one of them, Carlos. So he and I start talking. I ask him a question, and he's surrounded by 4 or 5 people that are platinum equity people and maybe a couple of family members. And so there's 7 or 8 people, but it's just a one-on-one with me and him. And the minute he talks, like everybody, you could hear a pin drop. There's no talking. Everybody's staring directly at him. And I've noticed that before whenever I've been around people with that kind of money. There's a deference.
Yes.
That the people around him, right? It's almost unnatural in a way, but it's not. I mean, it could be feudal times, right? I mean, this is just. I mean, it's deep in our blood and our bones in terms of human societies, but you really feel it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that'd actually be a funny sketch, like one of those old Woody Allen, sketches, whatever, of or Mel Brooks, Monty Python, or whatever, something like that, where when the king talks, but the court jester is always interrupting him, like that just never. By the way, my favorite rich guy thing is years ago, I saw Roger Penske at the Grand Prix, and he's walking and he has his assistant next to him, and the assistant hands him a cell phone. Penske does something, talks for a second, just hands it back. So high level, I don't even carry a cell phone. You cannot reach me. You must go through my assistant. And I don't, that's my dream. That's peak.
Yeah, no,
peak
your
living.
dream is to make enough money that you don't have to carry a wallet or an ID.
Yes.
Like you just don't need it, right? Anywhere you go, you just go get on your private plane and mess up the atmosphere. No. But anyway, it was good to talk to him. He talked about.
How long did you talk to him about?
Not for 6-7 minutes. I mean,
okay.
Which. Yeah.
Hey, so that's about a sports interview. Talking to an athlete in the locker room.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't. I mean, it's not.
Max.
With a coach or a general manager, sometimes you can get up to half an hour or so.
This isn't Izzo. This isn't Izzo. Okay, just the Izzo.
Or Ken Holland. You could sit in his office for an hour. But even Weaver, I've had one-on-ones with him before, and those go 15, 20 minutes. So an owner is, unless you have somebody that's, I don't know, maybe Jerry Jones will sit with you forever, right? But
rarefied air.
Yeah. But so anyway, he a few things that really stuck with me. One, he acknowledged it's taken too long, right? At least for him. I don't know if you say too long, because what's going to happen? He owns a team. There are no consequences other than, I guess, people not coming and the revenue streams slow down. So I guess that'd be the biggest consequence. But meanwhile, the value of your franchise gets lifted up because of the overall league and just inflation and the natural progression of capitalism. So even if you don't have that many fans in, it's an investment. Short of that, what are the consequences, right? So when you say it's taken a while, that's just him wanting to win. So I feel like I needed to make it more clear, though, because a few people emailed me wanting to know, saying, hey, the rebuild hasn't been going on that long. Troy Weaver's only been here 3 years. I think what Tom Gores meant is that, he's had the team now, 11 years?
Yeah.
He wants to win. So to him, it's an 11-year period. When you say rebuild, you can say, well, that's just been the last few years. But he's responsible for it all. So,
but you know what, though?
That's what stuck with me, right? Hey, it's taken too long. He said that.
Here's the difference about Gores, why, in a way, he gets a pass a little bit, is he's shaking it up. I mean, he's not Chris Ilitch. I mean, he's spending money. He's trying different things, Van Gundy and Casey and Weaver and, now McCarthy. I mean, like, he's not just sitting there on his wallet doing nothing. And I think that buys you some, I don't know if goodwill is maybe too strong a word, but some patience from the fan base. It's like, he's at least trying to do something. And in your column, you quote him as, when you ask him, he said what he said at the dinner to the team was, I want to remove any obstacle, like whatever you need to win, I will provide it for you. So maybe he isn't making the best executive choices as an owner, but it's not like he's doing nothing and being cheap. So, you can't really blame him too much for this, right?
No, I mean, I think the one area some fans will quibble with is there was a playoff edict there for a while, right? Because he just was tired of the losing, wanted to get in the playoffs, and they did. They got in there with Van Gundy, and you could say, okay, did they stay with Dwayne Casey a year too long or whatever? Maybe is Troy Weaver going to work out or not? Who knows? But you're right. To your point, I don't like the Lions. I think for so long struggled with not only getting the right combination of coach and front office and getting the right rosters in there, which those guys are responsible for, but they also had larger issues. And I think, and we can talk about this later in this summer, but Sheila Ford Hamp really wanting to change the way that headquarters felt, and went after bringing in people that were going to bring certain kind of energies in there. I don't think that's ever been an issue with the Pistons, right? I mean, to your point, Stan Van Gundy was in the finals, right? I mean, he had a really good resume when he was hired. He was thought of as one of the best basketball minds in the league. Dwayne Casey was a winning coach who just had been the coach of the year. And Ed Stefanski, who was a sort of an interim GM there for a while, was highly thought of. You know, looking back, did he make a mistake giving Van Gundy the front office job along with you? Probably.
But it wasn't a weird choice like Millen.
No, it wasn't.
It made sense.
Wasn't. It did. It's just sometimes it doesn't work out, and you know, we'll see if these guys work out. But yeah, to your point, it's not because he doesn't want to spend. And if he ever had a team competitive enough where he had to start paying his guys to keep them, and then you got to start building around the margin of that means you're starting to go over the luxury tax, which costs the owners money. I'd bet he'd have no problem. In fact, he said that about a year ago. Yeah, we get to that point, we'll pay, we'll spend.
You can see
by everything else he's done. I don't doubt that.
Oh, no question. I mean, if this team ever gets rolling, oh yeah, it's just going to be, you know, the spigot's going to be wide open. You got to figure, right?
Yeah. I mean, so you're hiring somebody and you're putting your faith in them, and it's a guessing game. And I was thinking about this, Carlos, and I didn't write this because there are other examples, but sports they're not totally unique, but they're a little bit unique. And when you own or you run a franchise, let's say you own it, you're that level. Everybody that runs any kind of business relies on everybody else in that business, obviously. But when you're an owner, that relationship, you're fairly far removed for understanding the sport in a way that the people that are coaching in front, right? I mean, that gap is pretty far. So you're really, really reliant on, right?
Mm-hmm.
On them. And how do you know if they're going to be a good GM? You know if they're going to be a coach maybe because of the record or whatever before, but how do you really know? You're relying on other people to tell you, well, this person is highly thought of. So it's, at some point, owners are kind of, it's a tough spot, isn't it? You can set the culture. You can be cheap or not cheap, but what else can you do other than those two things? Be willing to keep trying over and over?
Well, and that's the thing. Is like, look at somebody, the guy who should be the most successful NFL owner by far is Jerry Jones. He played college football at Arkansas. I mean, he's the only owner who actually like played the game at a high level.
Right.
He should know more than anybody else, and he does know a lot about football. But it's more about running business, and I think a lot of these owners have a lot of diverse business interests, different businesses in their portfolio. Maybe they started whatever, Arthur Blank, Home Depot and all that, and it's successful. But running a chain of home improvement stores is not the same as running an NFL franchise. And I think the owners always walk that tough line between I know how to succeed in business, I know what sells, I know when things look successful, but I don't want to be too meddlesome. I don't want to get in there. When I started Home Depot, I was on the ground level and I was at whatever, great, and you were in charge of it. And then as the business grew, you hired people, you delegated. But in the NFL, in any sports league, it's so hard to sit there and say, I know everything and we're going to do it this way and be, too meddlesome. So it's a tough place to be for an owner. And I think it really comes down to, I always have liked the model of owner who has successfully either started or run their own business. And that's one reason why I like Gores is, he did that. I think he started Platinum Equity, right? I mean, he founded it, he made his own money.
Mm-hmm.
It says a lot, about someone like him, and that's where Chris Ilitch is different. Sheila Ford Hamp is different. When you inherit money, it doesn't mean you can't be successful, but I don't think there's that track record of having known how to make these tough decisions, how to overcome obstacles and still continue to be, really successful.
No, he's a self-made man. I know the fan base has been frustrated with him at times, but there was a narrative for a while that he doesn't care because he lives in LA and he's not involved enough. And so this is all just speculation, though, right? And that's what happens when you don't win year after year after year. So when you don't win, there's frustration, and you start filling in. You fill in the vacuum of not winning, and that can mean anything. And that's what's happened to Gores. I think people have backed off a little bit lately. I think they were not shocked, but pleasantly surprised he went out and got Monty Williams. But we'll see what happens with this young core. He believes in it, but even he said, and I put this in the columns, like, it's basketball. You don't know. You don't know. Nobody knows. You could substitute for that word basketball. You could put hockey. You could put baseball. You could put football. Whatever, golf. You could put whatever word you want in there.
Absolutely.
Whatever sport. It's and he's right. There's a lot of ways. That's the truest thing he told me in that interview. You try to set the table, and then you keep your fingers crossed. You do your homework, obviously. But we'll see. It's funny. He loved the rookie, Osur Thompson, and watching him up close because he's just a really mature and really interesting young kid who's got a lot of sense about how to play the game. And that was immediate from everywhere. It's interesting. I was trying to think of the last time a player created that much buzz in Summer League who can't shoot. I mean, I shouldn't say he can't shoot. He can shoot a little, but you know what I mean? But he was, for people that love basketball, he's a thrilling player to watch. And which is why I think Joe Dumars was on one of the broadcasts when they were playing and talking about the bad boys or the league or something. And he interrupted himself and said, "Boy, this kid is good." Right. Just kind of, and that was all over Vegas for several days. And, I mean, not the Wembanyama level, obviously, but that was kind of fun to write about. And you mentioned Gores, and you wanted to talk about that column. Of the 4 basketball columns I wrote out there, that was by far the least successful in terms of interest from our readership, by far.
Gores?
And it's
because it's not hype. Everything else is like, oh, this guy's amazing. That guy's amazing. Nothing. Let me ask you, in the entirety of Summer League, of every player, was any player criticized, or is it all like training camp where everybody just
this year you get, I mean, some years you get second year guys, and so I remember last year being out there writing a tough piece on Killian Hayes. It was his second year. So sometimes you can get that, but what are you going to do with a rookie? What are you going to rip into a rookie for Summer League? I mean, it doesn't. For what? It does. I mean, if they're awful, then yeah. But Thompson was one of the best players out in Summer League. So what are you going to do with that, right? It's and it's not hype. You're writing about how somebody plays in the context of what that league is, and then you're trying to remind people as best you can, this is not the NBA. This is Summer League. This is Summer League. So you got to, I did that every column. It is, please remember, this is Summer League. But in this context, he looked great. Who knows if that'll translate? But I was, and then I wrote one column about Cade Cunningham. It's because to me, if he's great, they'll be fine. If he's not, they won't. I don't think it's really it's no more complicated than that. But anyway, I was shocked with Gores. You wrote something last week that was just similar. It didn't quite have the same interest, and it was a good piece, and I wish I could remember what it was, and it really surprised me.
That tells you everything. I can't remember what it was.
But it surprised me, that it didn't, and the Gores thing surprised me. So I guess I'm making this point. I'm curious what you think, because we're talking about Gores and he's hiring people. Well, it's similar for us. We have a decent idea a lot of the time about, what's news, what we should write about. But then there's sometimes we think, oh, people will want to read this, and then they just don't. No matter how long we do it, we're gonna sometimes put stuff out there, and it's just not going to happen.
Well, here's the dirty little secret about at least sports journalism, as I see it, is we could get a lot of clicks. All we have to do is write about every Lions draft pick. and just keep going on the draft picks and the Pistons draft picks and the hype.
Or when somebody gets in trouble with the
up.
law or whatever, it breaks the rules, right? I mean, something like that.
No, just right.
That'll always do
too,
well.
But
yeah.
you just write about promise. If you just write about the potential, guys in the minor league system and they're amazing. And this, I mean, you can just keep doing that over and over, and all the guys, all the amazing people, and you won't. It's very easy in sports journalism to find somebody, a coach, a scout, whatever, to hype somebody. It's very, very easy. It's really hard to find somebody to criticize, give you an honest assessment, put their name on it. So if you just keep doing that, I mean, people will read it. Is it, how true is it? How much is this really valid? Or are you stacking the deck of just, and that's part of my frustration, I think, when you get draft picks every year, is whatever sport it is, baseball, football, whatever, hockey, draft picks. Oh yeah, the scouts will come out of the woodwork. This guy's amazing. This guy's great. And I just wrote about that with the Lions. We'll talk about that soon. But they pick a linebacker, Jack Campbell, in the first round. Their linebackers coach comes out, Calvin Shepard's like, well, we're gonna play our best guy. Well, guess what? It's kind of a, you're speaking this into existence when he magically is the starter. Well, we picked we're playing our best guy. Why? Because this guy's our best guy. It's a circular argument. Sure, right. You're already setting it up to say he was the best guy, but it's always about promise. People want to read about that. People want to read about hope and promise and greatness. And this guy doesn't just jump; he floats. I think I read that somewhere. Someone doesn't just jump in the gym; he floats or something. Come on.
No, there's no. You're right about. I mean, obviously that's true. What you're saying is the fact. People do enjoy the idea of
hype,
promise,
hype.
But your definition of hype is just ridiculous. I mean, if somebody says they're floating in a basketball game, what does that mean? That means, and they're not just jumping. What does that mean? That means they're hanging around. That gives them an advantage around the rim. It's a tactical, tangible, tactile difference on a basketball court. You could go to any sport and find similar words to describe things that give players advantages. That's why that word was used. That's not a hype word. That's an actual advantage, physical advantage on a basketball court. Mm-hmm. That's all that is. It's just like on a football court. Well, look at when you use the word, not you, because you wouldn't, but wiggle or whatever. The way somebody gets in and out of a break as a cornerback, how fluid, whatever word you wanted to use to describe that. Well, they say that because it's going to give them an advantage. That doesn't mean they'll take advantage of that advantage, because there's a lot of other stuff that goes into it. So at this stage, all you have it's the very beginning of somebody's career. Like when I wrote about Thompson, it was easy to write that he can't shoot. What's trickier to write is imagine what his game's going to look like if he doesn't ever develop that shot. Will he still matter? And I think he will. And that's what's a lot, you got to study, you got to pay attention. And then you're saying, okay, is this going to translate? That's not hype. You watch somebody get up and get in somebody's grill. If he doesn't shoot, it'll obviously limit his potential overall as a basketball player. He will never be a star, not a superstar anyway. He won't. And that's fair. And that's what I wrote. And it's not complicated in that way. However, he shows, not that we want to make this a Thompson podcast, but I think the reason people got excited about him, not just Pistons fans, but just NBA people in general out there, is because you don't see that often somebody coming in at 20 who has a feel on both ends of the floor the way he does, and plays with the way he rebounded, the way he threw his body in, and was so physical. And the Pistons were an awful rebounding team last year, especially from the wing position. So you can see that and think, okay, that will probably translate. Does that mean he's just going to be a glorified role player? So anyway, but people were excited about that. Not so much the Gores thing.
Yeah, it's a little surprising, but it doesn't mean that you're still not going to be trying to get those stories and that access, and it just doesn't resonate. Now, if Gores had said something crazy and that had been in the headline, probably people would have read it more. But you can't control that. and I don't know how much, it probably doesn't play into it, but fantasy sports doesn't really, come into play yet for the NBA, but definitely for the NFL, when training camp comes, golly gee, everybody's having their fantasy draft sometime soon. How does this guy look? How does that guy look? By the way, one of the reasons, not that I need to promote our buddy Dave Burkett, but one of my favorite things that he does is definitely his training camp observations. And he does a great job, better than anybody, almost, not that I read the totality of every article written about the NFL, but a lot of people do these observations now. Dave was one of the first who did it. And he does a really good job of being fair, as far as he might mention how fast somebody looked, how whatever, but also their deficiencies, that they had 2 drops or whatever.
No, he does.
Had a worse day than the
strength
other.
And weaknesses.
And I think that's what when you're breaking something down, I think that's what you sometimes need to do, is say, this guy's strong, but he's small, or he's not defensive minded, but he's a great offensive, whatever, to just throw the positive hype out there, but nothing, but, that's where I think it's not fair. It's really, you're giving people only one side of the.
No, for sure. And that's what I enjoy most about Summer League is you get to write and say, okay, this is what looks good and this is what they have to work on. And I enjoy that part of it. And I think, for whatever reason, people, there's a little bit of interest in the team too right now, because they're young and people are a little
new coach.
They're a little bit, they're not optimistic. How did Gores put it? Cautiously optimistic that maybe they've finally got a young core. I think it's
maybe 30 wins.
Yeah, no, but right, which will be but that'll be 13 more wins, right? So that's almost I think I wrote in one of the columns, even if they double their wins, they're still not going to make the playoffs, right? So that's where where they're coming from. But no, I enjoy that part of it, and summer league is fun, but you can't just assume everybody's going to be great. You just write what you see, and you go to practice, and you talk, and that's fun. And I think people like that at this time of the year.
We're going to get a lot more of it with Lions training camp coming up too.
Yeah, no, for sure. Speaking of which, we got we need to talk about the Lions in your column, and the fact that you're on the hype train, which is amazing, because I think that's a first. You know what I mean? Although you had to denigrate the Lions fans first and say, well, I'm one of them too, so it's okay. So I guess that's a by proxy self-deprecation. Is that? Because I've never seen self-deprecation in a column before. So that was a first. It was beautiful. Made me. I got a little tear in the eye.
I got a little closer to your sons.
Yeah. No, that's great. All right, let's take a quick break. We'll be right back with more Free Press Sports with Carlos and Shawn after I go get a Kleenex and dry my eyes. Welcome back to Free Press Sports with Carlos and Shawn. Carlos, let's the NBA Summer League's over. You probably don't know who won the title. Does it matter who wins the NBA Summer League title?
Imani Bates won the title.
Actually,
why didn't you write an Imani Bates column?
I actually did think about that, but the timing of it didn't work out. There was the overlap. But in any case,
too many lunch dates.
I've also written about him a fair amount. What's that?
Too many lunch dates on the Strip in Chinatown? Or
no, between practices,
Little Saigon,
practices, deadline, and all that. Plus, I had a non-basketball column that I had to work on and finish when I was out there about eggs and the television show. So, no, I was plenty busy. We'll get to Bates. We've done Bates. In any case, that's all over. The Lions camp starts Sunday. Can you believe it? We're starting a little bit early because they are starting early with their opener on a Thursday night at Kansas City. So the league lets them start their camp a little early. And you decided to set that camp up by saying, hey, last year could be let me see if I can synopsize what you said. Last year could be a mirage. If you look at the first half of the season, then, why are we hyping them up? If you look at the second half, they're going to win the Super Bowl. You guys are drinking the Kool-Aid by you guys, the fans that you're talking to. But hey, I think they're going to win the division, so I'm drinking the Kool-Aid. Is that about right?
That's it. You're done. Okay. We're good. That's it. All right. Thanks for joining us this week on
No,
Carlos and
but in
Shawn.
all seriousness, then I wanted to have a little fun with this. I mean, you really believe in these guys. That's never happened. It's the first time I can remember.
No, I've believed in them before during the Sue, Calvin,
it hadn't happened
Stafford
in a
era.
decade.
For sure.
It hadn't happened in a decade.
Been a long time. Yeah, I think that they have a lot of promise, a lot of potential, and well, the division's weak. It's not going to be it shouldn't be a strong division. And then watch Jordan Love become the next incarnation of Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers. But everything's set up for them. There's a few moving or changing parts here. The run game should be good, but who knows? Rookie. Running backs coach is gone, new guy. So you never know. As Tom Gores would tell you, you never know in sports. But things look promising for this team. So, and I think that creates its own interest. For me as a sports writer, that definitely hey man, they're either going to be great or they're going to struggle. Either one is going to be interesting
Absolutely.
to cover, to see them have this unprecedented, winning and whatever, or struggling. Well, what's going on? And I will say this: I'm not a Lions fan. Okay, I've never rooted for them. I didn't grow up here or whatever. But what I have found interesting about this Dan Campbell regime is how they've overcome these difficulties, how they've dealt with him specifically. And it's been a lot. I think it's totally underappreciated. But that, to me, the narrative of how all that has, been dealt with, and they have still found a way to move forward and be successful in moderation. I think that's really interesting. So it's more interesting to me. It's almost like the Tiger Woods thing. More interested to see him get out of trouble than it is to just see him make a 15-foot putt for eagle or whatever it is.
No, I'm with you. They should be interesting this year. Football has built-in. I was just going to compare them to the other pro teams in town where the struggle is not as interesting because it can be struggling. But football's different. It's 17 games now, and it's week to week build up. And I guess by the November, December, we've seen it a little bit with the Lions when they have 2-3 years of losing in a row. But by and large, they're just interesting to begin with. And this year, with the expectation, you're right. It'll be fascinating to see if they can meet it or if they're going to struggle. How much interest in there is the Tigers? If the Pistons start off 2-12, which they easily could, the hardcores will stay with them and tune in, but they're not going to be interesting either, right? Because they lose interest when it's just year after year after year of struggle.
Right.
The struggle is interesting when there's the tension of the expectation that they could be good. And that's what we haven't had that in a few years.
Well, I think what was interesting, what held people's interest to some extent with the Red Wings last year was they had a new coach.
That helps a lot.
This year, the Tigers have a new general manager, but that's not that interesting, really, because he operates behind the scenes. But with Monty Williams, the new coach, people want to see how is he going to coach? How is he going to make it all work together? Obviously, they always have new draft picks, whatever. The return of Cade, that will be interesting. With the Lions, the NFL is just different that way because you get a lot of draft picks and they can make an immediate impact. And so every year for every NFL team, almost every NFL team has hope every year. And that's the genius of the NFL, is that every fan base has hope, even if it's a little bit unrealistic sometimes. But there's always hope. And so the Lions, of course, not only should the team be decent, but they're coming off that 8-2 finish, and they looked good and all that stuff. And there are some interesting rookies that people want to see. So the NFL is a unique animal that way, but for sure, it doesn't matter. A new coach helps in the NFL, but it's mostly the players, all the new blood that's injected into this team, plus a few free agents that are joining the team, even if they're not superstar free agents. People want to see how's it going to look.
A third of the roster, right?
So
isn't that what you turn over sometimes? A third,
right? Yeah. Oh yeah, huge turnover every year in the roster. Every year, hope springs eternally in the NFL.
Because the history and the facts back that up, right? From teams that jump up every year.
there's always one or two teams that come out of nowhere and, near the bottom of the division, and they either challenge or win the division title, and they come close, come out of nowhere. So, of course, the Lions have nowhere to go but down. They have to win what happens if the Lions don't win the division title? Dave, I'm sorry. I was referencing
No,
Dave,
people are
Shawn.
going to be let down. No, for sure. No, for sure. Well, it was a fun column, and I like that you poke fun at yourself a little bit. That's a good thing, I think. But yeah, it's going to be. I mean, let me ask you this, Carlos. Can you imagine that we're ever going to write about training camp as much as we are about to do? I mean, it's
we write about training camp a lot every year. Some of us go to training camp all the time.
Well,
year,
yeah,
so,
you did used to do that when that was your.
Can be different.
You used to do that when that was your job, I think. Although that was probably even inconsistent, but yeah. No, I'm just having fun. No, it's. I mean, we saw this with rookie minicamp, right? And then we saw it with the next one after that, or the OTA. The OTAs. People are looking around saying, "Why are there so many people out here?"
It was the first day. And I wrote about it, or I don't know, referenced it, and it was the perfect storm of it was the OTAs, whatever. First day, the Tigers were out of town. Nothing else was going on. Both teams, Pistons and Red Wings, weren't in the playoff. It was this vacuum on the sports calendar. So that helped.
But it wasn't just the first day, because I went out 2 or 3 times to both of those, which was kind of so crazy, and it was fairly close to being that crowded a couple other times. And it was. You weren't out there.
It was not.
You were not out there.
No, I went the first day, and I went again the second or third time that week, and it was completely different.
No, I was out there more than once. It was like that. Maybe not quite. Maybe a few people less, but to the point where the Lions, some of the Lions media relations people, and I even overheard a player walking off saying, "What's going on?" But a couple of the media relations people were.
The coaches, coaches were
they talked about that too, but I was talking about it with some of them. Like, yeah, this is the most combined people we've had. All I know is I don't think I've ever been to a rookie minicamp or OTA, and I heard a few media people say that, or at least it had been a while. So the point is, yeah, there's going to be a lot of coverage. Yeah. I would bet, right, from a lot of different places. Obviously, you want to get that at the Free Press. That starts with Dave Burkett. We can't be promoting other outlets here. That's not what we do. In any case, camp starts Sunday. The season will be here before you know it, and they'll be off and running, Carlos.
Yeah. What are you looking forward to the most? Who are you? Is there a player, a position group, a coach? What are you looking forward to seeing out there in camp, Shawn?
In camp, it's hard to tell in camp. I mean, I want to see, like everybody else, to see if Jamison Williams is how serious and what his route running is going to look like. And so, catch. There were a few drop issues, and that was just, again, OTAs or whatever. But so I'm curious about him. The rookies, there was. And fun watching Sam Laporta, the rookie tight end, make plays all over the field. So I'd be curious to see him in more of a form with pads on from time to time and against the whole team. But mostly what I'm looking forward to watching, Carlos, is the regular season starting and to see if their defense is any better. To see if Jared Goff can pick up kind of where he left off, to see how the new running back tandem compares to the Swift Jamal Williams tandem. So yeah, there's lots of interesting stuff to look at.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting camp, and I think if I'm not mistaken, I believe Calvin Johnson will be out there for part of it, helping out. So it might have a little bit of a different vibe. Definitely when they open up the camp, the practices to fans, season ticket holders, and then just open to all fans. How much more energy there will be. There was I didn't notice a huge difference last year, even with Hard Knocks being there, like among the fans. They're pretty good about showing up, but it wasn't. I thought it would be a little stronger of a turnout. But I think this year, with them being the favorites,
it's the winning
in the division. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how much more people come out. And it always depends on the day of the week, the weather.
It does, for sure. But it's the 8-2 finish. And the belief in the regime, the coach, and also and Brad Holmes, the general manager, that he will have found some more gems, right? Because they're starting to put their faith in him a little bit. We'll see. We'll see if they continue to earn it. It's not going to be boring, is it?
It shouldn't be boring. But ask me after three sessions of training camp.
No, I know. I just meant the season in general.
No,
it's not going to be boring.
Yeah, for sure.
Really, really interesting. All right, well, good fun read, good fun column, and let's take a quick break. One last quick break, and we'll be right back with more Free Press Sports with Carlos and Shawn and Carlos's favorite thing. Welcome back to Free Press Sports with Carlos and Shawn. It's that time of the show, Carlos. We got to wrap up, get the listeners out, but not before we tell them what your favorite thing was of the past week.
My favorite thing was odd. It was there's a little bit of a personal circumstance going on with my family, and it's required us to sort of be in the car, locked into the car together. My wife, my 2 kids, and my dog, and driving around kind of on a whim sometimes. So it's been a little weird, but we've had this weird bonding experience of we've had to go out and waste a few hours together, get some food, drive around our neighborhood, go to different neighborhoods. It's been odd, but it's been strangely bonding, because unless you go on a road trip, right, and you spend hours and hours, and even if you go on a road trip, everybody's unplugged, or plugged in rather. They're on their phones, on their headphones, whatever. Everybody's doing their own thing. But when you're kind of driving around for just several minutes, maybe an hour or so, everybody's kind of engaged and discussing things, and where should we eat, and should we get some ice cream, and how's the dog doing, and it's been kind of this helter-skelter schedule we've been on. So it's been challenging, but it's been really fun to go through this with the family. And one of my daughters invoked this line from the new Spider-Man movie, which I didn't remember, but they've seen it 3 times, so they know all the lines by heart. But we've started saying a quote from this movie where we say, "I've had the right amount of you people," because it's been a little bit too much sometimes. So, and now we're going on vacation together, so it should be even. But it's different. Vacation's different. Everybody kind of has their own space and goes their own way sometimes. But when you're locked in the car, Shawn, it's kind of like the worst version sometimes and sometimes the best version of the Chevy Chase movie Vacation. So that was my favorite part of this last week.
Well, that sounds great, Carlos. I could probably say any. That sounds really fun, actually, and I like that. I have had enough of you people. Great movie, by the way. It's just stunning to watch. It's gorgeous. In any case,
it's too long. They could have cut 20 minutes out of it.
Yeah, I don't remember feeling that way. But I can see why you'd say that. I could say any number of things, Carlos. I don't know about the Vegas trip, not melting in the 118 degree, finding a little Vietnamese coffee place or whatever out in the middle of the desert. That would be my favorite thing. But I'm going to go back to your baseball column about the clock and how it's improved the game. And I think you probably mentioned the Dodgers. It's been a minute since I mentioned it, because you can't not write about the Dodgers, which is good because it makes it personal, which I like. Anyway, I wrote a column that day too, or didn't write it that day, but that ran that day too, about the Bear, TV's The Bear, or should I say FX's The Bear, about a restaurant and a chef, and I wrote about an omelet scene and eggs and just various sort of silly things. And I don't want to reference my own column for my favorite thing, but there are a couple things about that day. One is that I like that both of us wrote sort of non-traditional. I mean, you were still at least writing about baseball and sports as a sports writer, so that's good. But we both wrote what we might call inside our business, Sunday type columns, where you're ruminating a little bit more, and I like it when you ruminate. And I would love for you to ruminate more, actually. But in any case, so that was cool. I thought it was, hey, we're not Sunday column material, but we're gonna go together on Saturday. You know what I mean? Hey, it's okay. It's all right. So we were kind of there together. I like that. But the other part of this, the other part of this that I enjoyed was that column. I got a lot of responses, as you might imagine. But my favorite one was that somebody sent me a picture of their breakfast. It was just really simple, over easy eggs with some hot sauce dabbled on it, and a piece of toast. And they were proud of it in a way, and they wanted to share that with me. And they mentioned a family. I got all sorts of emails about their Nana making this dish and sharing all that sort of stuff. But somebody actually took the trouble to take a photo and send me their breakfast. And I just, that's when you're connecting. And writers a lot of writers have a lot of doubt, a lot of, can be insecure. You wonder, we have a lot of tools now to kind of measure, but you still, what our stuff's doing in a way. And that helps the business model as much as it can, but you still don't know, right? So when you get a photo of somebody making eggs and sending it to you, that's okay. So running side by side with you and then getting that egg photo, that was kind of a fun Saturday. That was my favorite thing.
Yeah, it was a really fun column. I really enjoyed it with the eggs and the omelets, and even though I was misquoted. Yeah.
Well, you weren't really misquoted. So. You were just edited.
You just took the explitter out. That's all.
You were edited. And I want to thank you for that, too, because you sort of unintentionally helped me clarify something up at the top. I had struggled with that column for a few days. In any case, that was really fun. And I liked your baseball column about the clock. And I liked that you didn't take the cranky old fella on the porch about let it play out. There's no clock. You didn't. You went the opposite way, and that was fun.
Thank you. Let me ask you something, by the way, about the omelet. Not to drag this on too long, but I just happened to be flipping through my DVR, and I record America's Test Kitchen every week. And it was an older one from a couple of months ago, but they actually had an episode about making the perfect omelet. And it struck me, and I like omelets fine. They're great. But it struck me, I'm lactose intolerant, so I don't really eat them that much anymore because I can't put cheese in them. And I will have them with mushrooms and onions or whatever, I just don't do the cheese. But isn't that kind of defeating the whole purpose of an omelet if you can't have? And the America's Test Kitchen recipe, they use, I think it's shredded white sharp cheddar or something. And I really miss eating cheese. I love cheese. But is it really an omelet if you can't use cheese?
Absolutely. The classic French pepper. I mean, it's a French invention, right? And the classic, that specific form of cooked egg is, but it's a classic French preparation and a test of skill in that cooking culture. Young chefs are asked, okay, well, show me if you can make an omelet, because it involves a lot of things you don't really think about that are simple, but they require timing and feel and temperature control and all that. In any case, their omelet can just be the eggs with a little bit of chives on top. You don't have to have cheese. If it's
not that good. Come on. Come on. It's just fluffed eggs at that point.
But it's perfectly cooked, soft eggs. And as long as you've got salt, pepper helps too, but you can't not have salt. You got to have salt and a little chive, a little herb, and you're good. I promise you, if you got a perfectly cooked omelet from a professional that way, and all I had was some chives and a little salt, you'd be in heaven. It's that good when they're done like that. You don't have to have the cheese. The cheese obviously is great. All right.
I'll have to find a place that can make it heavenly omelet for me.
You probably have to go to a French. Yeah, I don't know who can. I don't know. There's a place in Austin that dumps queso over their beautifully fluffy omelets, but that's you can't have the queso, right? So
I can't have it. But I still love the omelets, and it was a great column. Check it out if you haven't seen it. It's Shawn did a great job with it, and talked about the bear, and fantastic show. If you haven't watched that, make sure you catch it. Although I don't know if that was your favorite episode, but the best episode on the show was Richie Stages.
I agree. I mean, figuring out how to get out of yourself and look at life a little bit differently by starting with cleaning forks. I mean, that's what a fabulous metaphor, and true, and super, super true. All right,
great actor.
Yeah, no, he's great. He's great. But who among us hasn't had a period in their life where they're struggling, or even just a few days in a row, and sometimes you get out of it by doing just the simplest thing. I'm going to go put a load of clothes in and fold them, and then go from there. It's a beautiful and true idea. All right. Let's get the listeners out of here, Carlos. We gotta thank some people. We'll start with Robin Chan, who makes this show happen, the lovely producer. Who else are we going to thank, Carlos? I just want to thank Robin. I don't care about anybody else.
That's it. Robin's the key. He's the kingmaker. But Kirkland Crawford and Anjanette Delgado are executive producers for the show. And our editor of the Free Press, Nicole Avery Nichols, who signs the checks and keeps us in line mostly, I guess. But Shawn, who's the most important person?
Well, you, the listener, because you join us every week. We're grateful, and we try to have a little fun here. We try to bring a little energy, which is against my nature, and I think Carlos has more natural energy than me, but not by much. And that's not saying his his governor's turned low by default too a little bit, but it is higher than mine. So he's got that over me. He's got that over me. But no, we want to thank you. You can obviously find us at wherever you find your favorite podcasts, at Spotify, Apple. When you get there, subscribe. Give us a shout, rate us, tell us what you think. And until next week, I guess, right, Carlos? When we're going to be back with more Lion stuff, I'm sure, and some other hot topics. We'll see what develops. But until then, thanks for joining us. And any last words, Carlos?
No, look out for possibly a surprise guest next week, but you got to stay tuned for that.
All right. Oh, I love a good cliffhanger. All right, my man. It was fun as always, and we'll talk to y'all next week.